future of the monarchy look like? Royal author Lady Colin Campbell offers her insight. Plus, best-selling writer Lionel Shriver, our very own Neil Oliver, and positive Professor Carol Sikora deliver a dose of reason on the issues that matter to you. And as ever, I'm joined by my superstar panel, including Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and conservative commentator Lacey Butcher. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
All dressed up for the Queen's Jubilee? Far from it. This is just my Friday night look. On Mark Dolan tonight, we're in party mode. Of course we are. In the first of 3 Jubilee special shows. In The Big Question, is the Queen the greatest ever Brit? Does she edge it over Shakespeare, Churchill and J.K. Rowling? My Mark Meets guest is one of the original stars of reality TV. The singer Chico is live in the studio at 10. That's right, it's Chico time at 10. Reacting to the big stories of the day, our policy expert at the Bow Group think tank Benjamin Loughnane, radio and TV legend Mike Porky Parry, and Channel 4 TV presenter Precious Muir. And in my big opinion, you won't want to miss it, my verdict on 7 decades of Queen Elizabeth II. And there is a lot to reflect on. I'll see you after the headlines with Polly.
Good evening. The top stories tonight. Buckingham Palace has confirmed the Queen will not attend the Epsom Derby tomorrow. Her Majesty is expected to watch the event on TV from Windsor Castle. The Archbishop of York has meanwhile thanked the Queen for staying the course during a service at St Paul's Cathedral today. Members of the royal family were in attendance, including Prince Charles and Camilla, and they were joined by dignitaries to honour the Queen and her 70-year reign. Prince William and Kate were also there, alongside Prince Harry and Meghan, who appeared with the Windsors for the first time since moving to the United States. Her Majesty had to miss the event after experiencing some discomfort yesterday. During Platinum Jubilee celebrations, the Archbishop said the Queen was missed.
Your Majesty, we are sorry that you're not here with us this morning, but we are so glad that you are still in the saddle. And we are glad that there is still more to come.
Well, in other news this evening, Uefa has apologised to Liverpool and Real Madrid fans over what's being called distressing events at the Champions League final in Paris last weekend. It's after local fans were pictured climbing over gates to get into the game illegally, and Liverpool fans were accused of using fake tickets to access the stadium. Fans were pepper sprayed and tear gassed outside the Stade de France. In a statement, Uefa says no football fan should be put in that situation and it must not happen again. In international news, Ukraine's leader has pledged to continue defending his country as Russia's assault on its neighbour entered its 100th day. This afternoon, President Zelensky released a statement saying victory will be ours. And that's after UK intelligence showed Russia now controls more than 90% of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine. The UK MOD is warning Moscow could now have complete control of the region in a matter of weeks. In a statement released by Number 10, Boris Johnson reiterated the UK's staunch support for Ukraine.
We will press on for as long as necessary, never wavering in our support for Ukraine until Putin's invasion has failed and Ukrainians enjoy the peace and the freedom that their heroism deserves.
In the United States, President Biden is urging Congress to ban assault weapons and expand background checks in a wake of another mass shooting. 4 people, including 2 doctors, were killed when a gunman opened fire at a hospital in Oklahoma yesterday. Last week, a teenager shot dead 19 primary school children and their teachers at a school in Texas. And during a racially motivated attack, 10 people were killed in Buffalo in New York. Here, the chairman of Asda says the government's plans to bring back imperial measurements are complete and utter nonsense. Lord Stuart Rose says the move would mean going backwards at a time that's difficult for business. The government says it's launched a consultation to ditch what it calls overbearing EU laws on the use of measurements like pounds and ounces. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. Now it's time for Mark Dolan Tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight and a special evening of Jubilee celebrations we have in store for you. In the big question, is the Queen the greatest ever Brit? Does she edge it over Shakespeare, Churchill and J.K. Rowling? In the news agenda with my panel, do booing Jubilee crowds suggest it's over for Boris? Is it wrong to ask people where they originate from? And have Brits fallen out of love with queuing? Reacting to those stories and many more are my brilliant panel tonight of policy expert at the Bow Group think tank, Benjamin Loughnane, radio and TV legend, Fleet Street royalty himself, Mike Porky Parry, and Channel 4 TV presenter and reality star, Precious Muir. My Mark Meets guest is one of the original stars of reality TV. The singer Chico joins me live from Greece. It's Chico time at 10 p.m. I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark at gbnews.uk. And why don't you send in your favourite Jubilee pictures? And this show has a golden rule, especially on the Jubilee. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So, for the next 3 nights, big debates, big guests, and a big celebration of Her Majesty, the Queen. And always big opinions. Let's start with this one. What can you say about Her Majesty, the Queen? I mean, doing something successfully for 7 years is impressive. But 70 years? Do me a favour. This shy, humble woman was thrust into the spotlight at the age of 25. Incredibly, the first Prime Minister who reported to her as monarch was Winston Churchill. It was 1952, and this young princess was now being briefed on a weekly basis by a giant of British politics and public life, Churchill himself. Britain was still dealing with the economic, military, infrastructural and societal fallout from the Second World War. The country was healing whilst seeking a new role in a changing world. The Queen would become the face of a new post-war Britain. She was to be the glue that held this country together. On her watch, prim and proper 1950s Britain edged its way out of rationing and austerity into the swinging 60s. Modern housing developments, the white heat of technology, motorways, new towns, shopping centres, the Beatles and the contraceptive pill. Elizabeth was on our banknotes for the multiple financial crises of the 1970s, including the Winter of Discontent and that humiliating moment in 1976 when Britain faced near bankruptcy and had to go with its begging bowl to the International Monetary Fund to borrow billions. She was on the same banknotes that saw an economic boom in the 1980s. The first Prime Minister that really challenged her authority was Margaret Thatcher. She thought she was the Queen too, and they were known to not get on. She was here for the entirety of our relationship with the European Union, 47 years. And she was our monarch when full sovereignty was restored to these islands when we completely left on the 1st of January 2020. She's been the pandemic queen, of course, continuing where possible to perform her litany of daily duties in spite of the COVID restrictions. And she had to mourn the loss of her beloved Philip at the height of the pandemic. You'd need, wouldn't you, a heart of stone and the absence of a pulse to not have been moved by that now famous photograph of her sitting all by herself in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. For me, that image represented the sick inhumanity of the restrictions placed upon our people. Never again. I know there were some, occasionally, around the death of Diana who had rumblings about her approach. Whether to lower the flag at Buckingham Palace after Diana died and whether to show emotion. For the Queen, there was never any confusion. Duty and protocol have been the abiding themes of her reign, and any public criticism at that time was a misunderstanding of those two important principles from which she has never strayed: duty and protocol. She was sticking to the rules and doing her job. And here's another thing. The Queen is elegant, and that's important too. No one rocks a dress, hat and coat combo quite like Her Majesty, and she's got a stunning smile. What can I say? She always has and always will looked like just the perfect Queen. And she's box office too around the world. Most countries have to muddle along with elected heads of state. But the person representing the UK is one of the most globally recognised people on the planet. When she visits France, she's not staying at the George Cinq. She's in the Élysée Palace. When she goes to Washington, she's not at the Best Western, although I do like a Best Western. She's in the White House. Whilst being resolutely apolitical, she's in her own way a canny political operator, dropping occasional hints about what she thinks. When the Scots were in the throes of the independence referendum campaign, she simply hinted to them to consider how they voted very carefully indeed. Talk about an iron hand wrapped in a velvet glove. And that sums her up. Authentic, elegant and discreet, all sustained by the quiet, firm and relentless power of her character. You would have hoped at the tender age of 96 that she'd be able to enjoy life, but she's had to deal with Prince Harry running off to Hollywood and vilifying both the family and the institution. And what can you say about her so-called favourite son, Andrew? Although I think he may now have lost that title as well. She's handled all of those challenges in the way that she's handled everything else, with down-to-earth common sense, a steady determination, and a stoic, very British instinct to keep calm and carry on. And long may she carry on. Let's not have any talk about her passing the baton to Charles. Notwithstanding her recent health issues, she still has a great contribution to make. As long as she's with us, she always will. In the end, what does a head of state do? Well, they represent the nation. And with her humble, no-nonsense, fuss-free commitment, she's the very definition, the epitome of Britishness itself. She personifies our history, our culture and our values. And she leads by example as she listens to her Roberts radio every morning, sat next to her Ring heater, eating her cornflakes famously stored in Tupperware. Strangely majestic, strangely down to earth, what an impossible mix this woman is. So what is her legacy? Well, she's been a solid figurehead through wars, economic crises, natural disasters, health emergencies, terror attacks and more. And she's been a consistent force at a time when our country and society has changed dramatically. I'd argue largely for the better. Britain is now a bold, creative, confident nation, a beacon of diversity and an economic and cultural powerhouse, all on her watch. And I think her greatest legacy is the monarchy itself and its continued existence. In spite of the haters and the best efforts of a couple of numpties in her own family, the royals remain stubbornly popular, as the last couple of days have demonstrated. And with the international soft diplomatic power they provide, and with the billions they bring in tourism, as well as being an integral part of the brand of Britain, the Queen leaves the institution in even better health than she found it. Her great achievement is that there is still a royal family. In the wrong hands, they'd be long gone by now, and we'd have some hellish elected president. Can you imagine an elected president, a clapped-out former politician, a public figure or a celebrity? Just imagine the alternative to the Queen. President Blair. Please no. President Clegg. President Whitty. President Andrew Neil. Good to see him again. Or even worse, President Gary Lineker. Welcome to hell. So happy Jubilee to the extraordinary, irreplaceable, precious and much-loved Queen Elizabeth II. She truly is our greatest Briton. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Reacting to the big stories of the day and celebrating 7 decades of Queen Elizabeth II are policy expert at the Bow Group think tank, Benjamin Loughnane, radio and TV legend Mike Porky Parry, and Channel 4 TV presenter Precious Muir. Precious, let me start with you. What a remarkable lady she is.
I mean, it was... The whole entire thing so far has been phenomenal. I mean, the Queen looked amazing. Her fashion, everything about the event. When she came out on the balcony, I was just so excited. Obviously, the whole entire thing was just phenomenal, and she looked great. And I was kind of disappointed Meghan and Harry didn't make it to the balcony, but at least they were present, so that was something.
That's right. Perhaps there is some healing that's actually happening within the party. Yeah. We can certainly hope so. Mike Porky Parry, those that wish to see the destruction of the monarchy have got their work cut out now, haven't they?
Oh, certainly. I mean, you know, this 70th celebration has just magnified what we in this country already knew, but now around the world. Do you see the number of countries that took the feed on the first 2 days of the Platinum celebration? You know, the crazy leader of North Korea is sending his best wishes, and you don't really get him to make any comment about anybody else anywhere in the world unless it's negative, but he said something positive about the Queen. 2 points there, Mark. I saw a Forbes report today which says that the monarchy is worth £19 billion a year to the economy in this country, OK? So for those who say, oh, you know, they're a drain on the taxpayer and all that, no, they're not. They pay it back many, many, many times over. But I have to make a statement about, is she the greatest Briton ever? No, that has to be Winston Churchill. I mean, the Queen is glorious. She's been around all of my life, OK?
She's a true inspiration.
Oh, true inspiration.
To women.
Of course she is. Of course.
I mean, she's done so well. She's in a position that she shouldn't be in technically terms. There should be a king. And she was given this position and she's managed to carry it for 70 years.
But I'm not criticising her, Precious.
No, I agree,
but
she's the only person that we should be ever considering for a position like that.
Yeah, but I am. She's been with me all my life. Since the day I was born in 54, the Queen has been there. I can't imagine life without her, but she was born into it. Churchill stepped up when we needed somebody who had to take over from the hapless Neville Chamberlain and face the might of Hitler, and he did. So he did it by choice. The Queen did it out of duty. But nobody has carried out their duty in such a manner since Lord Nelson in terms of what they do for this country. A truly magnificent woman. I hope she goes on forever.
Well, we all do, don't we, Mike? But Benjamin Loughnane, can the monarchy survive the loss of the Queen, which, of course, sadly will eventually happen?
I think it will. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people. I'd say the majority of people in this country have only ever known the Queen in terms of a monarch of the country. So it'd be a difficult thing for people to adjust to having Charles as the king. In fact, it would be a difficult thing to adjust having a king instead of a queen. One of the attributes of Elizabeth is that she's channeled, I think, the femininity, the strength of her femininity into the role very well. And so it's sort of defined what our monarch is, and I think that soft touch, that iron fist and a velvet glove is an attribute of that. Whereas a king would be very difficult, I think, for a lot of people to adjust to a very different character of that. But I think all of these people, these whingers who are going to be peeking out of their blinds, at the street parties, going, oh, why are they all celebrating the monarchy? What a bunch of awful people celebrating an awful institution. They just need to grow up, honestly. Just get around something that unifies the country. Don't overthink it too much. At the end of the day, you might not agree with the monarchy, but go out and have a slice of cake with your neighbours. We've had enough division.
Unity. That's the purpose of, the United Kingdom. We all come together on occasions like this, and I think, going through a pandemic, you would assume that everybody would want to participate and join in something, because 2 years ago we were stuck inside. So to be against celebrating the Jubilee is outrageous, in my opinion.
A lot of those people wish we were still stuck inside.
That's right.
That is very true.
And, of course, the Queen is above politicians. She's the cement that binds us all together as, United Kingdom citizens with all the privileges that brings, because... she does it out of duty, and politicians do it out of desperate, career...
Well, they do it for the money.
Yeah, exactly. Desperate, career-driven lust for power. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and you raise an important point there, Precious, about the way that the monarchy can bring our country together. We have a vibrant and diverse society, and I wonder whether the Ukrainians have taught us that patriotism is the most important quality that a country can have.
I mean, for me, it's like being patriotic to the country that you're born and raised in is important for the society to be aware of from the start. I was a child, and I knew that having a queen was super important because it actually gives you someone to aspire to or inspire you to do better in life. It's not about being separate. It's about coming together as a united front in terms of the country and travelling. And you'll see the difference when you leave here. I lived in the US for so long, and they love the royals because we have that opportunity to have them, and we just, as society here in London and England, we don't appreciate them as much. I feel like you see that when you travel. Yeah.
Mike Porky Parry, has the Jubilee saved patriotism?
Well, I think it's enhanced patriotism. I think, we have to be reminded sometimes what we've got in this country. This country is the most democratic and the fairest country in the world, and one reason for that is because of the Queen. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All the values that woman exudes, generosity, the respect for civilization, the respect for values of freedom and democracy, she represents all of that. She's also head of the Church of England. So I think we take her for granted. I think we take her for granted every day of our life, and we have done. So I'm delighted that we've now gone out on this 4-day splurge to be able to individually prove our admiration and our love for our monarch for upholding all those principles which make this country extra special.
Number one.
A country that gave us Mike Porky Parry, radio legend. Benjamin Loughnane, Britain gave us your good self as well as lovely Precious, of course. Benjamin, can I also ask you, the final thought on this, does the Jubilee put a full stop on the last 2 years? Is it the end of the pandemic, seeing thousands of people huddled together outside Buckingham Palace and in pubs and in street parties, the length and breadth of the land? Has the Jubilee put a full stop to the pandemic?
I certainly think events like the Jubilee, when you look back historically, they're those sort of great moments, landmark moments, where you see where things turned and changed. I'd say the past couple of years, the past year, certainly, we've eased out of it and we've got back to a normal situation, apart from what we had from the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And the Jubilee will be the thing that people point to, I think, where they really say that was when it was properly over, that was when it really ended, that's when people moved on. I hope, anyway, I hope that's the case.
So.
Well, a fascinating conversation in store. An hour and 40 minutes of Jubilee celebrations, but we've got lots of other stuff to get through as well in the news agenda with my panel. Do booing Jubilee crowds suggest it's over for Boris? Do you think crowds were wrong to jeer the Prime Minister, our elected head of government? We'll discuss that before the end of the hour. Also, is it wrong to ask people where they originate from? Have Brits fallen out of love with queuing? And also, we're going to play a special Great British Game Show tonight, one based around Her Majesty herself. Looking forward to that one. But next, in the big question, is the Queen our greatest ever Briton? See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. Let's have a look at your emails. They are flooding in thick and fast. In response to our big opinion monologue, which George is now crafting into a clip, which you can see on @GBNews via Twitter in the next couple of minutes. How about this? Wise words as always, says Gary Chapman in relation to my big opinion monologue. God save the Queen. Ronald says, hi, Mark, what a fantastic monologue, unlike that panellist on Dan's show last night. Well done, you're fab. Take care, Ron. Well, Ron, thank you so much for that. Thank you for watching Dan as well, who is, of course, back on Monday at 9. And Dee says, Mark, you're looking very dapper tonight. Well, Dee, if you can't dress up for the Queen's Jubilee, especially 7 decades in the throne, then when can you? So look, thank you very much for your emails. We'll get to more of them shortly, but it's time now for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, is Queen Elizabeth II the greatest Briton of all time? How does she match up to Robert Louis Stevenson, Winston Churchill, Jane Austen, J.K. Rowling, Florence Nightingale, William Shakespeare? Well, to debate this, I'm delighted to welcome in the studio Thomas Mason Archer-Mills, creator of the new Jubilee Anthem and founder of the British Monarchists Society. I'll also be joined by Head of Royal Protection Di Davies and Jeremy Havardi, who is the author of The Greatest Britain, essays on Winston Churchill's life and political philosophy, and last but not least, the Daily Mail's Robert Hardman, author of the new biography, Queen of Our Times. Great to have all of these wonderful guests with us. Let me start with you, if I can, to have you on the show. Folks, let me just gather my information here whilst we get to it. Thomas. Now, Thomas, do you think the Queen is our greatest Brit?
Without doubt, of course she is. Her Majesty has been the steadrock of this nation. 70 years that we're celebrating, and it's so very important. But what makes Britain great is what Britain has given to the world. And what Britain has given has been 70 years of this woman's undoubted service, creating a commonwealth of 8 remnants of the British Empire into 54 nations, which is 2.6 billion people that still look to the United Kingdom. What is the United Kingdom doing? Nobody is a greater person to fly the British flag than, of course, Her Majesty the Queen.
She's been remarkably dignified, a great figurehead.
Yes.
But has she actually done anything? I mean, historically, kings and queens have waged wars. They've either accumulated wealth or spent it. Has the Queen been active enough? I mean, is she comparable to Winston Churchill, who famously defeated Hitler?
Well, of course. She is the original influencer, social influence. When we look in the 60s, we look when America was rife with racism. We look at apartheid, and here she is, our Queen, dancing with the presidents of Africa, breaking through the race barrier and tackling things that most people, I don't think, would have done if they were in her position at that age and time.
Yeah.
So where we are today is, in a sense, where the Queen has brought us.
Yeah, for sure. And therefore, do you think she does qualify as our greatest Britain?
Yes, in the modern age, 100%.
OK. And is it longevity, or is it what she actually did? I mean, is it just because she's been in the job such a long time?
Well, this is a job that is learned, it's passed down. And yes, it is that. But what it comes down to is what she has been able to do on her own. So, of course, there's handlers, there's guiders, there's all of that. But at the end of the day, it's Her Majesty who decides what she wants to do.
Well, let's bring in the rest of our contributors to this conversation. And Di Davies is former head of Royal Protection, a retired top cop. And Di, you've obviously worked with the Queen. You've served her as head of Royal Protection. Is she our greatest Brit?
Well, I think by any definition, she merits coming very close to that. In modern times, I would say, yes, she probably has. But you know, her greatest virtue, which nobody has spoken about so far, is her immense courage. Her courage both as an individual worldwide. I can't recall in 70-odd years any individual getting so much praise from around the world, from presidents, from prime ministers. I don't know of anyone else. And I heard a woman in the crowd yesterday say, you know, presidents come and go. She's had 14 prime ministers. She's seen them all come and go. How many of us could actually name all of them? And all these presidents that have come and gone. So she deserves, I think, almost to be put on that accolade. I concur with others who've said, you know, Prime Minister Churchill warrants it in his time. But if we reflect the 70 years, as I have and have done, her courage, as I keep saying, is the greatest virtue I have seen in any individual. And I know from experience how often others have tried to either attack her, to bring her down, both in Ireland, both in this country. You wouldn't believe how many threats, attacks have been stopped, have been put aside by the dedication of others. I took an oath as a very young constable to actually, take the allegiance to the Queen. I stand by that, and I think the vast majority in this country still hold her to that very high standard. She comes very, very close, in my opinion. Yes, you can debate it, but frankly, why should we debate this subject at this time? She stands head above everyone I know, men and women. I don't know any other world leader who's held in such a high esteem. So, yes, I've persuaded myself she probably does deserve that accolade.
Robert Hardman, you write for the Daily Mail. You're the author of the new biography of our monarch, Queen of Our Times. Where does she rank, in your view, in terms of greatest Britain?
Well, I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed this debate. Greatest living Britain, I'd have absolutely no doubt about giving her that accolade. I might add, she'd absolutely hate this title. She does not like getting competitive either with the ancestors or anyone else, and for that reason, I know she wouldn't want it. So I think just put her up there as a sort of, you put her alongside Churchill, whoever, in the greatest ever, greatest living. I mean, there's no question. When I was writing my book, I actually interviewed many of our prime ministers, both British and others. I mean, don't forget, we've talked about 14 British prime ministers, which she's had. But she's had, I mean, if you add up all the realms and the prime ministers there, it runs into the hundreds. And she's also met and known 14 US presidents, which is staggering. I interviewed George W. Bush for my book, and he said he couldn't think of anyone else in history ever who has met and known 14 presidents. She started with Truman all the way up to Joe Biden. She didn't meet Lyndon Johnson, but she did meet Herbert Hoover in retirement. That's 14. That's nearly a third of the total. And talking to Professor Joseph Nye of Harvard, the man who invented soft power, we've been talking about soft power, this use of influence. And I mean, she is the ultimate influencer, but using influence and charm rather than force. Professor Nye, he said, well, Britain's got two outstanding diplomatic soft power assets, which are unique. One is the English language, Shakespeare, etc., and the other is the Queen. And you talk to other people around the world, I mean, they would think we'd gone absolutely stark staring bonkers if we even suggested getting rid of her. I mean, any of these presidents, I just mentioned US presidents, I mean, we could go on about presidents of lots of other countries. I mean, Barack Obama, for example, he found her absolutely amazing, to the point that when he was delivering a speech in 2015 and he was musing on the essence of great leadership, and he said that he singled out two what he called giants of leadership of his lifetime who'd been lucky enough to meet. One was Nelson Mandela and the other was the Queen. We are not just talking about some figurehead, some nice great-grandmother, some lovely person who's managed to live, to sit on the throne for 70 years, and isn't that nice? What we're doing with this Jubilee, we are reflecting on one of the greats. So I have absolutely no hesitation saying greatest living Britain. But like I said, she wouldn't like that. She certainly wouldn't want to get into any sort of competition with the likes of Winston Churchill. But I mean, today there is no one else on the world stage like her, and let's just celebrate.
Robert Hardman, when you were writing your new biography of the Queen, Queen of Our Times, was there anything you unearthed about the monarch that surprised you?
Yes, lots. People said, oh, you can't possibly find out anything new. You know, she's been written about so comprehensively. And, I mean, for starters, she very kindly gave me access to her father's wartime diaries. Now, at the moment, we hear a lot of people drawing comparisons between Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine and Winston Churchill, quite rightly, and we're talking about Churchill tonight. But reading those diaries, and they're very candid, they're extraordinary, they've never been published. Reading this monarch who's facing the worst crisis this country has ever known, imminent invasion, imminent execution of himself, his family, everything. You read his diaries, it explains so much about her, because he is incredibly stoical, and he's this sort of Zelensky-like figure. I see in Zelensky lots of the characteristics of George VI. He doesn't promise mad stuff. He doesn't promise things he can't deliver. But what he says, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to stand with you. And his account of being dive-bombed in his own home, I mean, it's extraordinary. He has to go out and put on a brave face, but he writes in his diary, I shouldn't even be writing this down, but I can't concentrate. I can't even look out of I just look out of the window. But he gets on with it because he has to. And just remember, all through that war, here is his teenage daughter who adores him, who reveres him, who is learning from him. This is what she is picking up. This is how she's been trained, if you like. She once talked about, she said, training is all. I hope I've been well trained. Well, she has. And when you read how her father went through, that explains, as I say, that tells us where the keep calm and carry on ethic comes from. But I mean, I learned lots of other things talking to people who've known her well much more recently. You know, you just talk to, as I said, I've talked to prime ministers, to presidents. One thing that comes through, which I think is fascinating, is she never panics. I've tried to find examples of panic. Occasionally in her reign, her critics would say, you touched on it earlier, maybe she was a bit slow to act. Well, you know, over 70 years, who hasn't occasionally been slow to act? But there were moments, perhaps, where she could have acted more speedily, but she's never panicked. She doesn't rush to judgment. She takes things carefully, and that we've all been the beneficiaries of that. As Di has said, she's incredibly brave. I mean, I do find it absolutely extraordinary that possibly one of the most shocking days of her life, that day when she woke up one morning to find a drunk, drug-addled nutter at the end of her bed threatening to kill himself with a broken ashtray. I mean, that would be enough to send some people into therapy for life. Michael Fagan, I'm talking about, in the summer of 1982. 4 hours later, she was on parade holding an investiture. No one had any idea what she'd just been through because she didn't want to let anybody down. That's the sort of, that's the essence of her approach to duty. And it's why, people occasionally say, oh, well, isn't it time for her to, step aside like other monarchs have done? And a lot of other monarchs have done. The Queen of Holland, the King of Belgium, the King of Spain, the Pope, the Emir of Qatar, even our last emperor stepped down a couple of years ago. She won't, because she took an oath before God and she made that famous vow on her 21st birthday. She was going to serve us all her life. And boy, has she stuck to that oath.
Too right. Jeremy Harvardy, you're the author of The Greatest Britain, Essays on Winston Churchill's Life and Political Philosophy, another fascinating read. Is the Queen's legacy comparable with that of Churchill?
Well, hi, Mark. I think the Queen has a fantastic legacy. I think she's been a magnificent leader who's served her nation with a great sense of duty and service. And she's been a role model. And everything that's been said so far, I think, is absolutely right. And I agree with Robert. I think she's the greatest living Briton. I wouldn't personally say that you can compare her legacy with that of Churchill, because I think that they are not people that are in that sense comparable. And if I can maybe just say why I think Churchill deserves the accolade. I think when you look at most politicians today, a lot of them come across as bland. They're sometimes opportunistic. Sometimes they're accused of not having a consistent political philosophy, and they can come into our lives and a decade later they're gone and that's it. Churchill was a remarkable political figure. He had a public career that lasted 6 decades. And during that time, he tackled pretty much every major issue in politics and the economy. So, for example, issues of taxation, House of Lords reform, prison reform, naval reform. He was Chancellor, he was Home Secretary. Then the international issues like the Arab-Israeli conflict in Northern Ireland, Russia's relations with the West. I mean, he had a gigantic knowledge and a great sweep of events. But of course, what he's primarily remembered for is that during the greatest crisis that these islands have known, he stepped up and he was the war leader that Britain needed. And he was a truly great war leader. In so many ways. For example, he rejected the idea of a compromise peace. Now, had he not become Prime Minister, Lord Halifax would surely have become Prime Minister and was open to the idea of a compromise peace with Germany. Hitler wouldn't have any of it for many reasons, and one of them was that there was a historian in him that was always looking to see what the verdict of history would be like if he took any course of action. And he knew that it would be disastrous. You couldn't have a hegemonic Germany in charge of the whole of Europe. He saw through Hitler. He realized he was not some kind of nationalist with grievances, but that he was a revolutionary who would ultimately destroy civilization. So Churchill was magnificent. His oratory was soaring. It galvanized his nation. It galvanized the subjugated peoples of Europe. And he had an unceasing energy in the way that he actually conducted the war. So during the greatest crisis that we've really known, Churchill's leadership was magnificent. And that's not to say, of course, that he didn't make mistakes. He did make mistakes. There were political misjudgments. He did have feet of clay. But I would argue that on the fundamental issues, the really important issues of the day, whether it was trying to prevent World War I, whether it was anticipating the danger in the 1930s from the fascist powers, and of course the leadership during the Second World War, and also, I have to say, anticipating the danger from Stalin after 1945. In all those respects, Churchill's judgment stands up. He was remarkably prescient, and also so much of what he says remains relevant to debates today.
Couldn't agree with you more. I look forward to delving deeply into your book, Jeremy. Di, we're established here. We have established that the Queen is a Great Britain. I agree with Robert, our greatest living Briton. What about the Queen as a human being? Is she a great human being? You probably know her personally, the best of all five of us here.
Well, no, I must correct you on that. I don't. But what I would say is her humanity comes through in the 600 plus charities that she does support, has supported. I don't think we realise how much work goes on behind the scenes that this woman and indeed her family put into. Not only do they support charities and bring a huge amount of money in, their support, again, is instrumental in bringing others on board, along with her husband. We are so privileged to have this woman. Her Christianity, which shines through, as has been reflected today, actually steers, in my opinion, everything she does. And for that, I think we are so grateful. So I agree with all your panelists, the greatest living Briton, and we can discuss Churchill till the cows come home. But I agree, and I've been swayed with that by your very learned contributors tonight.
Thomas Mason Archer Mills, does the Queen still have a contribution to make?
The Queen is always making a contribution every day. 96 years old and still working full-time. That's the greatest contribution that she could ever make. And from day one, in front of God, in front of her people, an oath, whether it be her whole life, long or short, dedicated to the service of this nation and the great imperial family to which we all belong. That is duty. That is effort, which she has made effortless. So her contributions every day that she continues to be with us on the face of this earth is a contribution. She takes that very seriously. There will never be abdication. There will be nothing of the sort. Let's put that to bed right now, Mark. So every contribution that she wants to continue to make, she will do for as long as she is willing and able to do so.
My profound thanks to my brilliant panel for an absorbing conversation. Many thanks to none other than Thomas Mason Archer Mills, creator of the new Jubilee Anthem and founder of the British Monarchists Society. Also thanks to the former head of Royal Protection, Di Davies, plus Jeremy Harvardy, author of The Greatest Britain, essays on Winston Churchill's life and political philosophy. And last but not least, the Daily Mail's Robert Hardman, whose new book is also out now. It's a new biography of the Queen. It's winning rave reviews. It's called Queen of Our Times. How topical, how timely. Many thanks, folks. What do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. Is the Queen our greatest ever Brit? Lots more to come. After this, were crowds wrong to boo the Prime Minister this morning during the Jubilee celebrations? Is there a suggestion that Boris Johnson has lost the dressing room? We'll debate that with my brilliant panel. Also in the next hour, has Britain fallen out of love with queuing? And my Mark Meets guest is Chico. And we've got a mini monologue coming at 10. I'll talk about the top Tory that wants to reverse Brexit. And I'm not happy. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight and our Jubilee special. The emails are flooding in thick and fast. Brian says, in regards to the Queen, I hope she beats Louis XIV of France to be the longest reigning monarch in history. She deserves it. Well, fingers crossed she gets there. How about this from Maria, who says, in terms of Great Britain, Churchill is the greatest Brit. Margaret Thatcher is second, says Maria. Interesting stuff. How about this in regards to the Prime Minister being booed? Several people who were actually at the church said they did not hear booing for Boris, only cheers, although they did hear booing for Harry and Meghan. Well, let's talk about the booing right now. It won't have gone unnoticed that the Prime Minister was booed, or allegedly was booed, by a large crowd earlier today as he entered St Paul's Cathedral for the Jubilee service with his wife Carrie. Over the last year, of course, the PM's future has continuously been called into question amid the spiralling cost of living and Partygate. Almost 30 Conservative MPs out of the 54 needed have now put letters down calling for a leadership vote. But how serious are these boos? And could this suggest the end is closer than we think for Boris as Prime Minister? Has Boris lost the dressing room? Well, I'll get the views of my panel shortly, but I've got an email from Graham on this, who says, Mark, the only group who are booing are the London lefty lovies. They've been encouraged by the Ramona mainstream media to call him a liar simply because he got Brexit done against their will. Well, that's Graham's view. What is the view of Benjamin Loughnane from the Bow Group think tank, radio and TV legend Mike Porky Parry, and Channel 4 TV presenter Precious Muir? Benjamin, if I could start with you, has the Prime Minister lost the dressing room? The optics of that booing wasn't great, was it?
No, the optics were terrible. It's not what you want when you're trying to rebuild support, having people booing you. But bear in mind, one of these parties was, the day of the funeral of Prince Philip. All of these ardent monarchists, people who love the royal family, I think will have felt that quite personally. So they won't be any fans of, Boris and Carrie after hearing that story. The idea that royalists are naturally Tories and then naturally Conservative voters, and if he's lost those people, he's lost the whole country, I don't think holds water. I think, those sorts of people will have felt that quite personally and they will have booed him. However, they say it was a mixture of booing and cheering. I don't know how much it was, but does it really matter? At the end of the day, what matters is, can he continue to go on? I think he can. Does he have the support of his party? I think he does. The reality is, I doubt this is going to amount to anything.
Well, yes, and of course, picking up on Graham's point via email there, London is now so left-wing, it's been twinned with Pyongyang. So it's not a surprise that a bunch of lefties might boo Boris Johnson.
Well, it's not a surprise.
He'll get cheered in the north of England, of course.
Well, possibly. I mean, obviously, people have travelled down for that service, so it's not necessarily all Londoners who will have been there, but
I wonder if it was Londoners booing.
I wouldn't put it past a lot of Londoners going, oh, he's just around the corner, let's all go and boo him. And it wasn't actually anyone there to support the royal family at all. It was perhaps a bunch of people who went out with the express purpose of booing him. But look, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's not a few boos that make a difference. It's about the mood in the country.
Mike Porky Parry, there will be plenty of people out there and maybe watching the show tonight who don't like Boris Johnson. But is booing ever appropriate of a public figure?
Well, I didn't hear any booing, right? And when I heard the comment, I heard a bit of booing and all that, I went back and I thought, that's funny. And I really did honestly put my ear and I thought, this is a bit of licence here, you know. To start off with, I don't think a lot of people would have known Boris Johnson was going to the occasion. You know what I mean? It's all about the royals and the Prime Minister's an afterthought. So certainly nobody went down there deliberately to boo Boris Johnson. Benjamin's made the point, a lot of these people travel from the north of England, which is traditionally a very strong royalist area, you know, supporting the royals and all that. But if people want to boo Boris Johnson, count me in, but not because of Partygate, not because of anything to do with his private life. I want a Tory Prime Minister to pursue Tory policies, not the tax policies that he's pursuing, which are going to destroy our economy. When is he going to wake up and realise that all the money he's given away at the moment will at some stage have to be paid back? And we're already in terrible debt. So could you give us some Tory economic policies, not Gordon Brown policies? And could you lead the country like a Tory Prime Minister should? If you don't, I'll boo you. But I wouldn't boo any public figure who attended that service today in deference and loyalty and respect to the Queen. It was the Queen's occasion. So anybody who went there and booed anybody else is a muppet and a juice.
Well, yeah, we've seen, back in the day, it was George Osborne when he was Chancellor who was booed at Wembley, wasn't he?
Oh, I'd boo George Osborne at Wembley. He wrecked the buy-to-let industry in this country, of which I have an interest, so he gets a big thumbs down from me, OK? No problem at all. And it wasn't a cup final, it wasn't outside St Paul's Cathedral, the most revered building in this country.
I mean, you own more property than Donald Trump, famously. But, Precious, what about the principle of booing at public figures? Now, I don't want to be hypocritical because I'm Mr. Free Speech. So I guess based upon free speech, yes, you can boo anyone you like.
Of course.
But I'm not sure it's the right way to have political discourse. It's a bit like pantomime for me.
Well, I think it is. I mean, it was unnecessary because obviously, you know, he is still Prime Minister. As much as you don't have, maybe, you know, you're not on his side or you vote for him, he's still Prime Minister. So you have to show
appointed by the Queen, of course.
Exactly. You still have to show some form of respect. It is an environment where everybody's there to have fun. It wasn't the time or the place for it.
Well, yeah, for example,
anyone, nobody that entered that celebration should have been booed at all, including Meghan and Harry.
Including Meghan and Harry, completely agree. I am, you know, no cheerleader for Boris Johnson, but I certainly was consumed with absolute horror at the idea of Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister. This was in the run-up to the election in 2019. But if Corbyn had won that election, and if he was our Prime Minister, and if he was at the Jubilee celebrations today, I would not have booed him because I think there is an element to which, yes, you use your vote to get people in or out.
Exactly.
You communicate with friends and colleagues and through the media about what you think. But I just don't think booing is the way to go because I think it just ties in with that idea that politics is so tribal, that, you know, if you don't agree with me, then you're a bad person.
Yes.
I mean, silence is sometimes more damning than booing. Do you know what I mean?
It is.
And at football matches, I go to a lot of football matches during my life, anybody who boos a player in the team they support should be chucked out the ground. Because, again, the support you're there to give is to that team. If a guy's having a poor game, the last thing he wants is a few fans to start getting mouthy about it, you know? You support your people. As Precious just said, remember, the Prime Minister can only become Prime Minister when he's gone to Buckingham Palace and received the invitation from the Queen. So he is, in fact, the Queen's servant. So, again, if you're booing the Prime Minister today, you're having a go at the Queen, aren't you?
Yeah,
outrageous.
You most certainly are. And what do we think, Precious, about the PM? Does he survive this latest crisis?
Well, I mean, the situation, I mean, it just keeps unfolding. Obviously, 9 new photographs and it just, the development of the story, it's coming, obviously, the Labour, you know, he was basically part of the scandal on his side. Now this is happening. It just seems like as there is a tit for tat. I mean, you know, the PM just had some car go into his home in Camberwell or wherever he, you know, that house there. And it's just like, it just seems like the scandal is unfolding every day and it's like never ending. But at the end of the day, he's come out, he's said what he's done. it's down to us now to decide if he's going to be Prime Minister again.
Did you feel, going back to the optics, that this is a guy who famously won in Labour-dominated London as mayor, 2 elections in a row, 8 years running the capital? This is a guy that defies the laws of political gravity. He demolished the Red Wall in 2019. But is this now a Prime Minister that gets booed rather than cheered?
I think that the people that actually vote for him weren't at the Jubilee, to be honest with you.
Are there any people
They
that
weren't
vote
there.
for Boris Johnson still in existence, Benjamin Loughnane?
I'm sure there are
Who are
plenty.
these people?
There's a great theory about British politics, which is you can get away with anything as long as you can make people laugh. You know, as long as you can make people laugh, there's nothing that you can do. The moment people stop laughing, that's when you've got a problem. And I think people are still find Boris quite a funny figure. They still laugh at his, PMQs and his speech and all the rest of it. I'm not a fan of Boris in terms of policy or in terms of his governance. However, I do recognise the fact that he's still got the support of the country because he's funny.
Yeah. Do you think he should stay in post until the next election?
I think that the alternatives are probably worse. I don't see any contenders who would be able to take over at this point and rally the support that he managed to rally. I think he's got a good opportunity to turn it around if he enacts good policy making now.
I totally agree. Also, look at the alternative. The alternative, if he loses an election, if Tories lose the election, is a mishmash of Labour, SNP, Green parties, anybody else who'll come on board to give Keir Starmer a 4-seat majority in the House of Commons. You can't run a country like that.
Couldn't agree with you more. Lots to come in the next hour in the news agenda. Is it wrong to ask people where they originate from? It was a scandal which exploded on social media. And another mini monologue's coming. The Tory MP who wants to reverse Brexit. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I must stop playing with my dicky bow. It's 10 o'clock and this is a Mark Dolan Tonight Jubilee special celebrating 7 decades of Queen Elizabeth II. Also in the news agenda with my panel, is it wrong to ask people where they originate from? And have Brits fallen out of love with queuing? Reacting to those stories and many more, policy expert at the brilliant Bow Group think tank Benjamin Loughnane, broadcasting legend Mike Porky Parry, and Channel 4 TV presenter Precious Muir. Plus, my Mark Meets guest is someone that took part in the Prince's Trust, one of the original stars of reality TV. Pop star Chico is live in the studio. It's Chico time in 5 minutes from now. Plus, straight after this, In my take at 10, Brexit isn't safe, folks. They still want to cancel it. Find out why after the headlines with someone that can't be cancelled and never will be. Our Queen, Polly Middlehurst.
Goodness me, thank you, Mark. Good evening to you. Our top stories on GB News. Buckingham Palace has confirmed the Queen won't attend the Epsom Derby tomorrow. Her Majesty is expected to watch the event on TV from home at Windsor Castle. Well, today, the Archbishop of York thanked Her Majesty for staying the course during a Thanksgiving service at St Paul's Cathedral. In attendance were members of the royal family, including Prince Charles and Camilla, who were joined by dignitaries to honour the Queen and her 70-year reign. Prince William and Kate were there, along with Prince Harry and Meghan, who appeared with the Windsors for the first time since their break from royal duties. Her Majesty missed the event after experiencing some discomfort during her Platinum Jubilee celebrations yesterday, and the Archbishop said the Queen was missed.
Your Majesty, we are sorry that you're not here with us this morning. But we are so glad that you are still in the saddle. And we are glad that there is still more to come.
In other news today, Uefa has apologised to Liverpool and Real Madrid fans over what's being called the distressing events at the Champions League final in Paris last weekend. That comes after local fans were filmed climbing over gates to get into the game without tickets, and Liverpool fans were accused of trying to use fake tickets. Fans were pepper-sprayed and tear-gassed outside the Stade de France. In a statement, Uefa says no football fan should be put in that situation and it must not be repeated. Ukraine's leader has pledged to continue defending his country as Russia's war enters its 100th day. This afternoon, President Zelensky released a statement saying victory will be ours. That comes after UK intelligence shows Russia now has control of more than 90% of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine, with the UK MOD warning Moscow could have complete control of the area in the next couple of weeks. In a statement issued by Number 10, Boris Johnson reiterated the UK's staunch support for Ukraine.
We will press on for as long as necessary, never wavering in our support for Ukraine until Putin's invasion has failed and Ukrainians enjoy the peace and the freedom that their heroism deserves.
In the United States, President Biden is urging Congress to ban assault weapons and expand background checks following another mass shooting. 4 people, including 2 doctors, were killed when a gunman opened fire at a hospital in Oklahoma yesterday. And last week, a teenager shot dead 19 school children and 2 teachers at a school in Texas. And during a racially motivated attack, 10 people were killed in New York State. Here, the chairman of the supermarket giant Asda says the government's plans to bring back imperial measurements are complete and utter nonsense. Lord Stuart Rose said the move would mean going backwards at a difficult time for business. The government says it's launched a consultation to ditch what it calls overbearing EU laws on the use of measurements like pounds and ounces. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for more Mark Dolan Tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Big stories, big guests, big opinions, and this week a big celebration of Queen Elizabeth II and her 7 glorious decades on the throne. Still with me reacting to the big stories of the day and celebrating the Jubilee, our policy expert at the Bow Group think tank, Benjamin Loughnane, radio and TV legend Mike Porky Parry, and Channel 4 TV presenter Precious Muir, plus a Royal Jubilee game show. But first, my take at 10. Now, just when you thought we'd got Brexit done, a top Tory MP wants to undo it. Tobias Ellwood, the MP for Bournemouth East, must have spent too long sunbathing on the beach because he's proposed that Britain re-enters the European single market to tackle the cost of living crisis, an act that would, of course, provoke a democratic crisis too. Tobias Ellwood is a decent and respected man and has been a regular on this show, but he's got this one badly wrong. Tobias Ellwood might be the chairman of the Defence Select Committee, but in his hands, Brexit is not safe at all. Do we really want to have yet more debates about our departure from the European Union? A choice made by a clear majority in 2016. How could a democratic and constitutional crisis possibly serve this country well as we emerge from the pandemic? For Britain to enter the single market means we can kiss goodbye to those trade deals, kiss goodbye to the independence of our courts, kiss goodbye to our autonomy over regulations, and kiss goodbye to British sovereignty. Kiss off. I voted Remain, but like many people in that position, A, I accepted the result immediately, and B, I've always taken the view that if we are coming out, let's do it properly. I don't want Brexit light, a part-time Brexit, a Brexit which is half pregnant. I don't want a diet Brexit, plant-based, vegan Brexit 2.0. I want the real thing. Control of our money, our laws, our borders and our trade. Once we've sorted out the wretched Northern Ireland Protocol, which disgracefully divides our country, I'm confident we will get a real deal Brexit. A full English, the big cojones, a full-fat Brexit with all the trimmings. It's my view that Brexit only really works in its entirety. Go hard or go home. And I believe a proper Brexit, if delivered, will be a huge success for this country. So my message to Mr. Ellwood and the many others in Parliament and in the media that want us to go back in, EU turn if you want to. This Remainer is not for turning. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, one of the original stars of reality TV, Yusuf Chico Slimani, known of course to millions as Chico, a struggling singer who became an instant star after reaching the quarterfinals of the 2005 series of The X Factor. There followed a #1 hit in the charts entitled It's Chico Time, and since then he has appeared on Room 101, Pointless Celebrities, Celebrity Juice, Total Wipeout, Ricky Gervais's Extras and Dancing on Ice, to name but a few. He's also got a heart as big as his voice and has set up his own charity, an amazing charity called the Rainbow Child Foundation. Chico also suffered a bout of ill health when he had a stroke in 2018. But I'm delighted to say that he's now fighting fit and looking and sounding better than ever. What's that? Yes, folks, it's Chico time. Chico, welcome to GB News.
Thank you, Mark. I'm honoured to be on the show.
So great to have you on the programme. First of all, you had this health setback in 2018. I don't want to dwell on it, but you were unwell, you had a stroke. Are you better?
Yes, absolutely. It was kind of a stroke of luck, really, because when the universe wants to guide you into your rightful purpose or your intended purpose, it sometimes had to really smack you down and kind of just wakes you up. And as we say in Morocco, one knocks you out and one wakes you up. And that was definitely a wake-up call to kind of just realize the mission and the vision of why you incarnated in this wonderful movie called life.
For sure. And did it cause you to focus more on your health and your well-being, Chico?
Well, the funny thing is I've always been into the health and well-being. I actually was doing a fitness show called Block Fit, which is one of my fitness brands, and I was driving home and I was having an out-of-body experience, thinking it was a spiritual experience, which feels very much like an awakening. But talking to my wife, I said to her, look, I'm going to contact you in a minute. And within literally 2 minutes, luckily there was a sort of a turn-off. And at that time, I lost all faculty. The sort of time and space as we know it kind of disappeared. And boom, I was gone. And I didn't realize I was having a stroke, because to me, I was 47 at the time, and I was thinking, well, 47-year-olds with a six-pack don't get a stroke. It didn't make any sense. But eventually, it turns out that I did, and it was a miracle, the fact that I ended up driving home. I had a true near-death experience where I was in the middle of a car park, literally, and I just sort of said, right, basically, the only thing that I could think of was my children, and at that time, you get something like what you may call a life review.
Yeah.
And you're shown videos of a reality, of a future. And I wasn't there, and I basically closed my eyes and said, look, God, I really don't want to go right now because I don't feel I've fulfilled your mission yet. But if I do go, I want you to know I've done my best. And luckily, it wasn't Chico time. I basically woke up 3 hours later, and wow. And it was only to about 4 days later that I got diagnosed. And basically the doctor said, you know, you're a walking, talking miracle, basically, because the chances of me surviving after such a long time, it was like 0.000%.
Any idea why it happened, Chico?
Well, my spiritual master said it was not a physical matter, because they did all of the tests on me and everything came as super fit or athlete. But he said it was a spiritual matter, and it was something to really bring you back into line, to understand your purpose and your mission and vision in this life.
And did you require rehab? Like, did you lose your speech or your ability to sing or your dexterity?
Yes, I did. I lost the dexterity and long words. I couldn't say... Well, my longest word is probably marmalade, but I couldn't say it at the best of times. So, but that was definitely a word that I couldn't say. I was like, but other than that, it was really, truly, I feel very blessed, and I think my angels were working overtime that day.
Well, it's definitely not Chico time, and I'm so delighted that you're well. You look amazing, by the way. You look fantastic. Congratulations on your recovery. Let's talk about your career before X Factor. What was going on in your life when you entered that competition that would change your life?
Well, I was, basically I was a Moroccan goat herder in the mountains of Morocco. And then I came to England at 13 and a half, couldn't speak a word of English. Then I went to school, and because of the language barrier, basically, I was what you may term now as a hyperactive kid, or ADHD. So I couldn't really concentrate. But my mind was always ticking at 100,000 miles an hour. Anyway, I ended up leaving school without qualifications at 15 and a half, and became one of the first hairdresser YTS juniors. Then I became an electrical mechanical engineer. Then I became an exotic dancer, also known as a stripper. So, you know, I was looking after my uncles, 3 uncles, my grandparents, and, you know, money was needed, and I thought, okay, you might as well just go for it. Money for nothing and ladies for free, and who was I to disagree? You know, I just thought it was an amazing job to have. And of course, you know, it made me tour the world and everything else, but you get to a certain age and stage and you go, hold on, there's got to be more to life than this physicality or a six-pack. So anyway, I became a nightclub promoter, and then one day it just dawned on me. I thought, you know what? All the celebrities that are making it in the pop industry at the time was people who were coming from a reality show. So I thought, hey, why not? What's the worst thing that can happen? I'm a great believer in, you know, when people say why, I say why not? When people see a problem, I see a solution. When people see a stumbling block, I see a stepping stone. So anyway, I ended up going and auditioned for that. And what many people don't know is that actually the first audition, they actually turned me away. But I went back, and I was not taking no for an answer. And of course, that led on to me going to Ozzy Osbourne's house, where I created a kind of a TV gold, if you will, where I jumped in the pool with a live microphone. And Ozzy came. You see, at that moment, I was just, when I got on there, and I kind of got on when I jumped in the pool, there was, you know, Penelope Cruz's sister, Rachel Hunter, Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a far cry from Lucian Clock Tower, you know. And when I jumped in, everybody was like, oh. And Ozzy literally came up to me and he went, oh, I thought that was freaking amazing. You could have electrocuted yourself on my freaking pole. It must be freaking desperate. And I went, I am. He goes, oh, I'll never jump in the pool there. Yeah. Sharon! Anyway,
unbelievable.
At that moment, at that moment, it dawned on me, Mark. I went, the craziest rock and roll star is just called me crazy. I'll have it. I'll have that.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble when you're the bonkers one in the company of Ozzy Osbourne. How did How did your performance in X Factor change your life? Because it was massive. You didn't win the competition, but I don't think you needed to. You made your mark.
That's correct. I mean, I always say to people, look, you don't have to be a winner to be a winner. And the catchphrase really resonated with people. And, for me, I only knew out clubbing, women, that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, I become like a kid's idol favorite. And I couldn't believe that. To me, that was a miracle. But because for me, it was always about inspiring children and stuff like that. And what happened, not only did it change my life, it's now changed the lives of 100,000 children around the world, because my grandfather would always say, to whom much is given, much is expected. So, for us, from a spiritual point of view, charity stands as the highest form of worship. So we started the Rainbow Child Foundation in honor of my wife, because my spiritual master called my wife Rainbow, or her reality is Rainbow. And my real name is Yusuf, which is actually Joseph and a Technicolor. But it was never really, I never thought about it that way. It's just the rainbow seems to follow me, because I truly believe that we are all beautiful colors of the same rainbow, and each color by itself is beautiful, but it's magnificent when it all comes together in harmony. And, the treasure, there's a pot of gold at the end of that treasure, but that treasure lies within us, and we must find it and share it with those less fortunate than us. And I do believe that there is nothing greater than being able to help a child have a hand up as opposed to a hand out. So we created, we're helping, that's my son, water pumps in South Africa, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Asia, Pakistan. We help loads of people in Croatia, Serbia, in the UK, and now we've just been helping the refugees in Ukraine, and we've raised about £7,000 just recently, and it's going directly to the cause. And we're just doing the best we can with what we have, and sometimes your small change makes all the change, and that's what it's all about. I think the great Gandhi said, let us become the change we wish to see, and if we can do that, and hopefully when we close our eyes and leave this cosmic dance, we can hopefully leave a legacy for all to see and maybe hope to be.
Well, you've got a great musical legacy, a UK #1. Not everyone has achieved that. Your brilliant charity, whose website is rainbowchildfoundation.co.uk, if you want to check out the amazing work they do, currently helping Ukrainian children fleeing to neighbouring borders. What a great cause. That is an amazing thing. What's next for you, Chico?
Well, at the moment I've created something called Who Breath. So in the pandemic, I trained over 750 instructors to teach my brand, the Block Fit, but that's kind of like dance, combat, HIIT, yoga, meditation. But what I realized is the people that were going through depression, anxiety, trauma, PTSD, and what the pandemic has done is created a massive mental pandemic. That, to me, that's a real pandemic, because it's kind of like it's not being addressed in the way that it should. And sadly,
Chico, I think you've been quite critical of the policy of lockdowns. Is that correct?
Well, yes, in the sense of, I think now we know with the evidence that we have, I think we could have gone about it slightly in a different way, in the sense of really. You see, what it did is the fear porn created division, and it created a brother to fight with a brother, and a sister with a sister, and a mother with a husband. And to me, that's really the great tragedy. And I think what we should understand is we should unite as opposed to divide, and we should respect each other's opinions. Doesn't matter what spectrum it is, left wing or right wing, it's still the same wings of the same bird. And we must correct our own heart, soul, essence, presence. In other words, are we, when we disagree with someone, are we coming from a place of love? Are we really genuinely looking deep within to say, I love you unconditionally, irrelevant of our differences, and let's learn to overcome the fear, and let's raise the vibration. And that's what I feel that I'm here for, because even when you're trying to speak the truth, if it's based in lower vibration, then it's only going to manifest that. And now we need to come out of the trenches of the darkness that has befallen humanity, and we have to come together as one love, one heart, as one unity.
Completely right. Mrs. Dolan has been asking me to raise my vibrations for years. Chico, a privilege and a joy to have you on the show. Once again, the website for that charity, rainbowchildfoundation.co.uk. Briefly, how can people find out more about what you're up to in your project?
Say again, sorry?
How can people find out what you're up to in your projects?
Right now, I've got Who Breath, which is this, and it's actually an app, which is a breath work we're doing retreats all around the world. But I created this app. People can download it for free, and I put on a lot of free stuff on there for all the people that, like I said, suffering anxiety, depression, all of that. And we've had incredible success from people who suffered all of this and pretty much got rid of it within from 1 to a month's time. So download Who Breath, H-U Breath, or go to ischicotime.com and try it out for yourself. And all I want to say is I've lost about 9 people, friends, to suicide, and they're all men under 50. And I just want to give this little message out there. You're not alone. Reach out, because people care. If you've fallen out with anyone, shape or form, please pick up the phone. Be the first one to just go, look, whatever our difference is, I love you, and let's move forward. And I think a voice of love, of care can save a life. There are many people suffering, but it's okay not to be okay. And just reach out, because there's a lot of help out there. And hopefully we can all just weather this storm of madness and darkness into hopefully a bright future of gladness.
And a bright future for you too. Hugh Breath is the app. Chico, it's been such a treat to have you on the show. Join us again soon. We wish you well. Thank you for appearing on Mark Dolan tonight. Lots more to come, including a great British game show based around the Queen and the papers at exactly 10:30. What do Fleet Street have to say about today's Jubilee celebrations? And next, have the Brits fallen out of love with queuing? See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan. Dan Wootton, join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Well, every so often at 10 o'clock, I do a take at 10. And tonight, my mini monologue was all about Tobias Ellwood, who wants Britain to enter the single market to tackle the cost of living crisis. Steve says, "Hi, Mark, I cannot believe the willingness of Ellwood to surrender our sovereignty to an unelected bunch of cronies in Brussels." He's ex-military. Surely he does not condone the pathetic and cowardly response to the war in Ukraine by these idiots in the EU. God protect our country from the likes of him. Steve, thank you for that. Well, I'm a big fan of Tobias Ellwood. He's a regular on the show, but I do disagree with him about unravelling and undoing and reversing Brexit. Lots more to come. The papers at 10:30, but hundreds of holidaymakers' plans have been thrown into disarray after never-ending airport queues this bank holiday. Some have even waited for more than 3 hours to collect their luggage. But Manchester Airport, at their arrivals department, decided to take matters into their own hands by storming behind the carousel curtain to find their bags. That's right, punters literally just went into the carousel to get their bags. Now, our nation has long been renowned for appreciating a lengthy queue, but have Brits fallen out of love with waiting in line? Precious. Are you a queuer?
Not at all. I like VIP treatment all the way. I mean,
for you.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel
Very,
like
very commendable attitude to have in life.
I feel like I've deserved it. I've worked hard in my life, and I believe that, you know, it's nice to have that treatment to walk in and not have to worry about a queue and lining up and all of that chaos.
So do you feel that if you've paid for it, you deserve a better service?
Well, this is the thing. There is a blurred line in that sense. I mean, if you're paying for the same service, then obviously you shouldn't really get better treatment if you're paying exactly the same service. But if you're paying a little bit more, then yes, you do deserve it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm paying first class, I'm not going to line up. That's just
exactly.
That's just basically what's going to happen. If I'm paying for you know, to go into the lounge and have this kind of like beautiful access to all of those facilities,
free champagne.
Why would I need champagne? Of course. I mean, I love champagne.
Absolutely.
So why would I have to queue?
But Mike Porky-Perry, isn't queuing, patiently queuing, what makes Britain great?
No, anybody who's a queuer is a loser, OK? I don't queue either. The great advantage I found when I was a young reporter on the Chester Chronicle was that you could walk to the front of the queue at the King's Disco and knock on the door.
Disco?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not old, I'm afraid. And when they open the little window, it's Mike Parry from the newspaper, OK? Let him and his young lady in.
Wow.
Believe me, that was what we used to call a bird puller, you know what I mean? You can come in with me at the front of the queue.
Yeah.
In airports, I don't care whether I'm going club or not, I go to the club check-in, OK? When all the great unwashed, as I call them, are queuing in, you know, for economy, I just go to club and I just start checking in and tell her, and then she says, you know, the lady or the man behind her, says, you're not actually, I'm getting an upgrade, OK? Just deal with this first, please, and then we'll sort out the upgrade. And then when they've sorted that, I forget about the upgrade and just go off to the lounge anyway. So I'm totally with Precious on this. Queuing is for losers, and you don't want to be a loser in life.
Well, I'm going to get your thoughts on this shortly, Benjamin, and I'm going to ask my panel for their suggestion of how long you should wait for several things, including a bacon sarnie at Greg's, how long you should wait for your luggage, a doctor's appointment, your date, that's right, a hot date, and a few other things. So I'll quiz my panel about how long you should wait for these various things. But first up, it's time for the papers. Yes, indeed, it is exactly 10:30 p.m. And as always, at this point at the weekend, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we always look at tomorrow's papers, and we'll start with the I weekend. Johnson tells Tories, without me, you lose. Prime Minister's allies warn the rest of the party that they will surrender the red wall if they force him out now. And a great photograph of a street party. Party faithful. Millions celebrate as Queen rests. Where should we go next? Let's have a look at the Financial Times. Capital's drinkers face sobering reality as cost of a London pint climbs to £8. Mike Harry.
Horrifying,
Not
absolutely.
happy to hear about that one.
Do you know, I don't actually believe that, because I've been surprised the beer hasn't gone up as much as... I had a pint of beer in a London pub today at lunchtime, £5.40, which I thought was very reasonable. That was kind of central Londonish, you know what I mean?
Depends on the pub.
I agree. I paid this price in a pub on Tower Bridge Road recently. It was about £8.20 or something, and I thought, I'm not coming back here again. I think that's a rip-off.
I think the good pubs have resisted it, and the bad pubs have passed on all the climbing costs onto the customer.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there you go. We'll debate that in more depth shortly. Moving on to the Daily Mirror. Platinum Jubilee, together yet apart. Harry and William attend Thanksgiving service, but avoid coming face-to-face. William and Harry honoured the Queen at a service yesterday but kept their distance. The princes appeared ill at ease and failed to acknowledge each other as they sat at opposite sides of St Paul's Cathedral. The Daily Mail next. So far apart, painfully distant at St Paul's, the couples who were still rather frosty. William and Harry were finally reunited at St Paul's Cathedral yesterday, but the estranged brothers were still worlds apart. There you go, rather telling story there and a telling headline. Next up, the Daily Star. Romance is dead, gutted, dumped lovers learn beer bellies not so sexy after all. More bad news for us blokes.
Well, hang on, when were they ever sexy? Tell me, Precious, when was a man's beer belly?
They have never been sexy.
Yeah.
There you go, I stand corrected. Modern lovers with beer bellies were reeling last night after news that 1 in 7 have been dumped over their spare tyre. The Times on Saturday, you are still in the saddle. Archbishop paid tribute to absent Queen at St Paul's.
I thought that was a very unfortunate expression for him to use, actually.
I do agree.
Yeah. I mean, I heard him say it. Do you know what came into my head? The image of, John Wayne, not the Queen of England. I thought it was a very unfortunate
I do agree with you. It's not the first time he's put his foot up in recent weeks. Foot in his mouth. I can speak. People in glass houses, eh? How about the Daily Telegraph? Thank you for staying the course. Nation gives thanks to the Queen with a nod to her love of horse racing as Prince of Wales leads the way at St Paul's in her absence. And last but not least, the Daily Express, historic Platinum Jubilee edition. We give thanks. It was a service of thanksgiving for one very notable absentee whose unifying presence was still very much brought her family and the nation together. And those are your front pages. Let's go to the Mail newspaper. So far apart, painfully distant at St Paul's, the couples who are still at war by the looks of it. Precious, what do you think about this issue? The two brothers, will they ever resolve their differences?
I mean, I actually, honestly, I was quite disappointed because I felt at least they would have been in the front row. I mean, to be second row and so far away from the actual, obviously, main family members was quite disappointing, in my opinion. And I feel like they've earned their place. I know they've obviously left and they've gone, but they're still family. They're still, they deserve to be front row at least.
Was it petty?
It was, because, I mean, why would you have one son and not both? That's not fair. I mean,
but they're not working royals, are they?
I understand this. I really do. I respect that. It's just the fact that, Harry is still, the son of Prince Charles. He shouldn't be, cast aside because obviously he's decided to go another way in life. And that's unfair to him. OK, everybody doesn't like Meghan, but that's not his fault. He loves this woman and they are together, and we as society and the family have to just kind of go along and accept it now. They're not going anywhere. So we have to include them equally as just...
You're right about, their choice to take an alternative way of life. And I understand from listening to all the royal commentators, the Queen is actually quite sympathetic to Harry because after doing 70 years, she's thought to herself, if a younger person chooses not to take this role in life, I can hardly blame them. You know what I mean? That's why she's been so forgiving.
And she's fond of Harry, and she knows what he's been through with the loss of his mother.
Yes, exactly,
I mean, we talked, didn't we, Benjamin, about whether the Jubilee will be good news for patriotism, and does it secure the future of the monarchy? Will it do anything for family relations within the Windsor family?
Well, I do think, Harry's come back almost with his tail between his legs. There is a sense that he's here to try and make amends. The problem is, can people forgive him after, what happened last year, for example, after Prince Philip died? And at the time, they were, making trouble effectively for the Queen, probably the worst possible time to do that. There is a sense of, well, if they were in the front row, what sort of message would that send? That, they can go off and do their parade around America, and then when that doesn't work out, they can come back.
They don't want to be a real member of the royal family, so why should they be on the front row?
It's either you're in or you're out. Make the decision. It's like the cat when you open the door for it, and then suddenly it wants to turn around and walk. Well, come in or get out.
Is Prince Harry a pussy?
Well, he's a little ginger
Tom.
God,
come on.
He's a ginger Tom. That's the difference.
But they were treated quite specially, because did you see the bus? Did you see the bus that turned up with all the other minor royals on it?
Of course.
I mean, and I thought,
I wouldn't want to be a minor royal.
Yeah, they weren't put on that. At least they were given individual transport to get there. You know what I mean? Couldn't really see Meghan getting off a bus.
No, you wouldn't. See
I think they managed it with grace and elegance, because it was a difficult thing to get right, the balance, and they did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes, the I weekend, Benjamin. The headline: Johnson tells Tories, "Without me, you lose." Is he right?
Very possibly. It depends on who replaces him.
I mean, you're a Tory backbencher, and you've basically, the ink is barely dry on that letter requesting the Prime Minister to face a leadership contest. Do you send it?
Well, no, I'd probably try and leverage some sort of promotion before sending it, like all of them.
Or something.
Yeah, get a knighthood out of it. Never waste the good opportunity of chaos.
Sure.
But no, look, at the moment, I think a lot of Tory MPs on the backbenches putting in their letters. It's more about what they get out of it than anything else. I don't think they really care about the national interests or the Prime Minister or who it is. It's all about them. The kind of people who end up in these positions in politics are extremely self-interested a lot of the time, and I don't think ascribing to them some noble purpose of I'm going to do it because the Prime Minister did something wrong. That's not what they're thinking.
Would the Prime Minister welcome a vote of confidence in the House of Commons
Very
or
possibly.
a leadership election? Win it decisively, and then it's all guns blazing for economic recovery and preparation for the next election.
I think winning a vote of no confidence would do great wonders for his...
Well, it didn't do Theresa May much good, did it?
Well, it depends on the margin you win by.
Yeah, I agree.
If you win by a few votes, you look weakened, and it's just a case of when the next going to strike. But if you win overwhelmingly, you can start doing some good things.
Mike Porky Parry, do you think the Prime Minister will leverage the idea of an election in order to keep his job?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's a powerful argument, isn't it? Without me, you're going to lose the Red Wall, for example.
Well, I think it depends, and Benjamin knows a lot more about this than I do, who are lining themselves up to replace him. For instance, if it was Ben Wallace, I would actually not be too worried about Boris going. However, if it's somebody like the former Health Secretary, Hunt...
Jeremy Hunt,
I'd be extremely worried that the whole thing would collapse in a total fiasco.
This guy was Mr. Zero COVID, wasn't he?
Absolutely useless. I would like to see Lord Frost get back in at one of the two by-elections coming up, get onto the backbenches, and that then poses a real threat to Boris, because Lord Frost and Ben Wallace have distinctive and proper Tory policies, which I think would get the backing of the party and the country.
Precious.
So I think you're sorry. I think that would focus Boris's mind.
The Sun's political columnist Trevor Kavanagh, Precious, good friend and former colleague of Mike
Absolutely.
Parry's. He has, on several occasions, suggested to me that there is an election that's coming sooner rather than later.
Next year.
Possibly next year, possibly spring 2023. Would an early election be good for the country?
I think at the moment we're just kind of recovering from the situation of a pandemic, so I don't know if everybody's mindset is in the right place and will have the right, obviously the frame of mind to deal with something like this, because obviously we have to think about the policies. It's all about the policies and what's best for you and obviously the country. So this is why people vote the way they do, and if you're distracted and you've got other things going on, you might vote the wrong way.
Yes, of course, and that's always the worry.
This is what happens.
Romance is dead, Precious. Gutted, say the Daily Star. Dumped lovers learned that beer bellies are not so sexy after all.
Right, they aren't. They have never been.
They're brilliant.
Exactly.
Because the thing about a beer belly, that's somewhere for your partner to rest their head.
Really?
Isn't it? On a cold winter night.
Right.
What about the love handles?
I personally like a man who keeps himself in shape. I just find that more attractive.
Well, you've come to the wrong place.
Right.
No, excuse me. Speak for yourself, please, Dolan, if you don't mind.
That's true. Mike Porky Barry, he's a man of... he's got, it's all muscle, isn't it?
He's got a bit curved,
muscle, yeah. It's a bit of loose summer muscle,
Right,
OK? That's all it
see.
is.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it depends on the man, how you carry
Muscle
it.
memory.
As well, it's how you
right,
carry it, how you dress it, how you stand.
Would you ever... you were on a Channel 4 show that was all about...
Appearances.
Appearances.
Yes.
What was the show called again?
Open House.
Open House, right.
Yes,
Brilliant
yes.
show. And so would you... I mean, it's a personal question, you don't have to answer it, but
Right,
would
go.
you date a man with a beer belly?
It depends on how tall he was.
Or how rich
because
he was.
that's well, I mean, it doesn't matter about that. I mean, obviously, you've got to carry yourself in the right way. Because
absolutely.
If he owned more
somebody
property
who
than
has a lot of
Donald
money
Trump.
could be an absolute arse. So there we go.
If he had an apartment in Stockbroker, Belfast, Surrey,
it'd be a champagne belly.
and an apartment on a marina.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, there you go. You see,
I personally always go for aesthetics. So
you don't.
The outside packaging for me.
Oh,
but
I see,
I fall in love with the personality.
Locknane, you don't have any skin in this game. You don't have a dog in the race because you are whip thin.
Yes.
Very slender.
A little bit too thin, some might say.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen to your brand if you suddenly popped a beer belly?
I don't know, but I'm trying my best to get one. And I'm sculling pint after pint. It just never seems to
keep
appear.
it up.
Maybe at some point it will all come with a rear.
We can go together to the pub, take him out, show him.
I could be your trainer. You know
what?
After
this, go to the pub and you can train me up like kung fu.
That's Ada blind leading the blind and the drunk leading the drunk. To be honest with you, but you'll have fun doing it.
Going around in circles.
You reacted with horror, Mike Parry, at the idea of £8 a pint in London now. London is so bad that a £5 is a bargain.
Yeah, £5 is a bargain.
It is crazy,
definitely. If you can get a pint for about £5.40 or something like that. Look, I have been an advocate for years and years and years, and I still am, of Wetherspoons pubs.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I can still get a pint of beer in a Wetherspoons pub in Stockbroker Belt. I admit it's not London, for £1.20. OK?
£1.20.
Pint of Ruddles beer, £1.20. Even in, and I use Wetherspoons in town because if you finish work early, the best place to go for breakfast is Wetherspoons because they open at 9 o'clock and you can get a bacon.
You're getting the excuses in early here,
I'm
Mike.
getting the excuse early. So you can get a bacon butty and a pint of beer for £5 in a London city centre Wetherspoons. They're remarkable.
Well, you know that when you fill
value.
up your car with unleaded petrol or diesel, most of it's going in tax. It's the same with a pint of beer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they should cut the beer duty because, look, they don't do it for the supermarkets. The supermarkets can sell it for dirt cheap. It's the pubs that suffer.
£1.50 a bottle. A pint bottle, £1.50.
Too much knowledge there, Mike.
Pubs that suffer.
Loyalty card.
No, I do my research.
They know his name at Tesco Express. Here comes Porky.
I do my research, don't worry.
I'm glad to hear it. Just finally, because obviously so many different stories there, you are still in the saddle. This is the Archbishop of Canterbury who pays tribute to the Queen. You're not sure about that wording, Michael?
No, I'm not. As I said to you, you're still in the saddle gives me an image of John Wayne, riding into town. And I'm a bit confused here, but didn't he say that because he then wanted to move on to the Epsom Derby, which is happening tomorrow, which he's going to miss, and then said, I can't give you any tips? And I noticed not one single person in the whole of the congregation even smiled. He was trying to be too clever by half.
It was inappropriate.
Completely inappropriate. We're talking about the Epsom Derby, Queen's not there. She's not going to be there, and she is our monarch, so don't start trying to make a joke out of it,
I think that sort of awful vicar banter is a great British tradition. The vicar attempting to make jokes and failing miserably. When can we get that to our lunch?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Well, those are your papers. We reported just earlier in the show that at Manchester Airport in the arrivals department, lots of Brits took matters into their own hands after waiting 3 hours for their luggage by storming behind the carousel curtain to actually get their bags. Britain, renowned for its patience, its love of queuing, but have Brits fallen out of love with queuing? That's been the topic. Benjamin, you didn't get your 2 pennies worth on that. Are you a natural queuer?
Well, I think the best thing about queues, and the best reason to preserve them, is that you get to skip them. So having a queue there means you've got a queue to skip. How awful would it be if everyone just went straight in?
You're being all very un-British, I've got to say. I know my viewers are horrified by everything you've all said about queuing.
No, I think skipping a queue is
it's that sort of stoic British value of a community spirit, of patience, and you just grind it out in that queue until your turn.
And that's the but
the British way.
When you've queued in 1,000 queues and you get to skip one, that's when all of those queues you feel the redemption.
No, I must say I am a little bit of a devotee of the airport fast track.
I totally agree.
It costs, I think, about a £5, and when you get to the airport, a little bit late.
Although the thing I don't understand with the airport is people queuing up before the gates open. For about an hour, they're standing in this queue.
Yeah, that's right.
I just sit down and wait for the queue to go through. And
if you're at the front of the plane, you get called first, so I just take my seat.
You're all very wise. Well, let me ask my panel and you at home, how long is it acceptable to wait for various things? So what about, how long would you queue at Greggs for a bacon sarnie? Precious? What's a reasonable
Well, I don't
length?
actually eat bacon, but...
vegan? Are you a vegetarian?
Sausage
I'm
roll?
a pescatarian.
A sausage roll?
So for a cheese
what about
a vegan sausage roll?
Okay, cheese pasty at Greggs or the filet o fish from McDonald's.
Right. So you're naming two places that I don't go regularly, to be honest, but I would wait for food. I love food.
Smoked salmon sandwich at Pret a Manger.
Yeah, there we go.
Is that better?
That's
or the
a lot
sushi?
better. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so how long would you queue for a smoked salmon
I
sandwich?
would say about 10 minutes maximum.
Bacon sarnie?
30 seconds. That's all you need, is 30 seconds.
If it's a lunch hour, it's quite busy in there.
Well,
time flies.
I wouldn't wait 10 minutes. I'm telling you, after 2 minutes, if I wasn't being served, I'd be out the door. Find somebody else who wanted to serve me.
So depends.
Bacon sandwich?
So depends on the circumstances.
Yeah,
I'd say usually up to 5 minutes. Definitely less than 5 minutes.
Never.
But last train, when you're in that McDonald's, which is the last thing open, and you've got the big queue, you do think maybe I could push it to 10 minutes just so I've got something to eat on the way home.
Well, there you go. You're very patient. How long would you wait for your luggage at the airport? What's a reasonable...
I always take hand luggage. So
And
I
me.
just walk
And me.
straight
Totally with you.
Lot Name uses his hand.
No,
That's what I've heard.
I'm just with hand luggage these days.
Okay.
And on British Airways, you can take a huge bag now.
Oh, look at you, man of the people.
Some under the seat.
Because we have lotions and makeup.
Well,
and
exactly.
So we've got to check.
Yeah, well, don't worry, my lotion fits in my pocket.
Shall we finish on this one? How long do you wait for your date to turn up for a romantic evening? First date. Mike, you've had a few of those.
Yeah.
You are a Lothario.
I am a bit of a Lothario.
You're a
I have to
romantic.
admit, yeah.
Cupid's arrow has struck you more than once.
I take it as a sign of utter ignorance if somebody doesn't turn up on time. I'm such a gentleman. I'm such a gentleman. If I'm meeting a lady, whether we meet in a nice upmarket wine bar or we meet in a restaurant, I get there 10 minutes before the designated time so that the lady does not feel uncomfortable when she walks in, looking around, is there a table, is there a waiter? I arrive with the flowers, give the flowers to the waiter and say, my young lady...
flowers.
My young lady will be joining me in about 5 or 10 minutes, please. When she's sat down and we've ordered a drink, could you then bring her flowers, please? And
Does this all happen at the Wetherspoons, by the way?
No, not at the Wetherspoons. Wetherspoons is not a great place to romance ladies because they tend not to get on with what I would call some of the great washed. The great unwashed, sorry. Some of the great unwashed.
So
not
really,
that I'm suggesting there's anything wrong with people who use Wetherspoons. There isn't. They're great people.
And you're a fan and I'm a fan too.
I am as well,
In fact, we should do our show from a Wetherspoons and I want you to be our star guest.
Great idea.
Yeah,
great idea. We'll do that. Yeah.
Well, look, lots more to come. Indeed, we're going to play a game based around the Jubilee. Can't wait for that one. And also, is it rude to ask someone where they originate from? We'll discuss that next.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Royal-based game show to end the programme, but just time for this. Political commentator Femi Oluwole has shared his experience on Twitter about an older woman who was asking him for some help, and he assisted her because he's a lovely guy. She then asked him where he originates from. Here's what he had to say. Here's the tweet. That internal tension every black person feels sometimes. Was polite to an old woman at the shop, so she found me outside. So where do you originate from? I'm wearing a Union Jack, and that's your opener. She meant nothing but love, so I didn't have the heart to call it out. So what do we think about it? Is it inappropriate to ask someone where they originate from? Precious?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. I personally feel like as long as it's coming from a good place and it's not a negative thing.
Like curiosity?
Yeah, just curiosity, but just don't assume because obviously someone has a different complexion to you that they're English, they're not English at all. So you've got to kind of, you know, an older generation person is going to say what they feel and it's just harder to get them to change. Mm-hmm. I still have family members that still say the word coloured. So it is there and it's just harder for them to change.
Did it make Femi feel un-British, though, to be asked, where do you originate from? Is it, well, I originate from, you know, South London?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Greenwich. I was born in Greenwich Hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't be more English. I have a British flag on my wrist.
Sure.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody of an older generation will see me and believe that, obviously, straight away that I'm born and raised and from England. So it's difficult, it's hard. But I feel like if it's coming from a good place, then it's not a bad question to ask.
And here's the thing, Benjamin, we all originate from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I'm a Dolan, and people have often said, oh, that's an Irish name, so where do you originate from? We're like, well, my parents, Dublin and County Cavan.
Yeah, well, yeah, Loughnane, I always get, well, is that Scottish, Irish? But, you know, it's a perfectly well-meaning question. No one ever means any harm. But if someone comes up to you and goes, so where are you from, in a really malicious way, feel free to take offence at that. But I think most people just being quite friendly and nice and asking...
Well, Mike Porky-Parry, are we not glossing over this, that there are lots of people of colour who actually are sick of this question?
Yeah, well, look, I would spend a few minutes engaging with that person before I worked out in my head whether it's appropriate to say, and I'd never say, where are you? I'd say, where did your family originate from? Now, that is a genuine interest. I've travelled the world in my job, as all of us have. I've been to Africa, North and South. I've been to the Caribbean. And I have a genuine interest in where people come from, you know what I mean? And it might be 3 generations ago. But contrast that with people here from East Europe. We know they've come from somewhere because they still speak broken English. Do you understand what I'm saying? They have an accent. And so, and I always, funny enough, I've got a new hairdresser lady and she talks with an Eastern accent. Where'd you come from? I come from Romania. Then I told her the story about how I was there when Ceausescu was toppled. You know what I mean? And I just get interested in people's origins.
But I feel like sometimes it's some people take it the wrong way and they feel discriminated against and they don't feel as equal as everybody else. So I do see it on that side.
Yes, I do as well. I do.
Because you feel like, oh, wow, so I'm not English then, if that's what the question you're asking. But as you said,
Yeah.
if you're engaging with the person,
Yes,
you're getting to know
that's
them,
what I'm saying.
and then you eventually ask that, that's totally different.
If you've got a guy driving...
But if that's your first comment to a person of colour, that's probably not the right thing.
I so totally agree. If you've got a guy driving your car and the journey is an hour and 10 minutes or something like that, after about half an hour, you might say, by the way, where did your family originate from? What generation? And he might say, oh, no, I'm a third generation from Grenada or something like that. You know what I mean?
Happy to talk about it. Yeah. People are quite proud of where they're from and their heritage.
That's right, yeah, absolutely, yeah. They'll tell you about your their parents came here on the boat from the Caribbean or something like that. Yeah, yeah,
Well, what a wonderful conversation. You all originate from fabulous places because we've loved the last 2 hours. Thank you for your wisdom, good looks, charm, and so much more. And thank you for your company as well. Apologies, no time for the game. We'll do it tomorrow night. Stick around for headliners, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9.
Looking ahead then to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking quite volatile, with the risk of thunderstorms at times in the south, but fine in the north. Let's take a look at the detail. So, heavy showers then and thunderstorms affecting much of the southwest of England, with some locally torrential downpours and the possibility of frequent lightning and hail. A Met Office yellow warning is in force. That extends east into southeast England, where there's also a risk of some very heavy showers, particularly on Sunday morning. Some of those thunderstorms will have moved into South Wales, but further north, it should be dry, perhaps with a bit of brightness as well towards the northern coast. A dry start across northwest England with the best of the sunshine towards coastal areas, but cloudier towards the Pennines, temperatures in Manchester around 11 Celsius at about 7 o'clock in the morning. For northeast England, there'll be much more cloud generally, although still quite a few bright